Hello, my loves. Happy Thursday. Sorry we missed yesterday. I'll tell you that story in a second. Welcome to the TRIBEvibe, a guided meditation series. Today we are going to be talking about meditation. Right, just simple stuff. We're going to do the meditation series and we're going to talk about some more meditation. We talked about meditation on Tuesday, and you know what? I knew something was looking different. I was like, I got to get my glam on. See, I have my glam on. I couldn't see myself. Y'all couldn't see me. I'm here now. Okay. Anyway. We talked about meditation on Tuesday. We talked about some examples of things that I've noticed that have been different for me since I started my meditation journey. And today we're going to get a little bit more specific and kind of talk about the ins and outs of meditation. So, you ready? You know what? We got to share, so let me go on and share. I'm looking at the screen and trying to do all of the things I need to do on time today. All right, share. See, at some point I'm going to be able to pay somebody to do this for us, and so I won't have to leave from y'all to go click the share button. But anyway, so today we're going to talk about meditation. So before we get started, I'm trying to make sure I remember every time for me to ask you guys, how have you been feeling today? Okay, we always want to make sure we're cognizant and aware of things we're going through. So I'm going to ask y'all that to the point where I probably annoy y'all. I can't talk. Annoy y'all, but I'm going to keep asking because I want to make sure that we're practicing that on a regular basis. So anyway, all right, let's get into it, my loves. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of give just a itty bitty general definition of what meditation is, only because I know sometimes we hear a lot of different, opinions and things of that nature. And I'm not saying mine's not an opinion also, but just to kind of narrow in our focus so that we can understand exactly what we're talking about. And so meditation is really simple. Y'all know I like to read it off for y'all because I don't want to mess nothing up. But basically that now I done wrote so small I can't even see it. Okay, so we want to encourage a heightened state of awareness and focused attention. So something fairly simple, right? We talked about this before when we kind of talked about stress and anxiety and mindfulness and different things like that. Usually the definitions are fairly simple, and I don't want to call them broad, but they can be applied to a lot of different things in your life. So encouraging yourself to have a heightened state of awareness and focused attention, we can see how that could be applicable to a lot of different places. So let's see. Y'all didn't read my notes over before I came on here, so now I'm a little discombobulated. So just stick with me. So you know what? Let's pause for a second. Let's pause for a second and have a real truth moment. Everything don't always have to be perfect. I'm getting on here and talking to y'all, but I'm talking to y'all just like y'all was here in front of me. So some days you got it and you're A1, and other days you're not. Now, they pay Beyonce money to come show up and be on 1,000% all the time, but y'all not paying me to be here. And even if y'all were paying me to be here, I still want to be real because I don't want to put on this facade that everything is perfect. So today I might be a little bit off. Been a long week. Like I said, we had to cancel yesterday because my toddler had toddler drama. And if anybody knows, has been around a toddler when they first learning how to say no and make decisions and things of that nature, you can understand that it gets a little complicated for their brain from time to time, and they don't know, they do things just to exercise their ability to make a choice, and don't always work in their favor. Sometimes they don't want to sit down and take a nap, sometimes they don't want to eat, sometimes they want to use the bathroom. And all that may make them a cranky baby. But you know what? They're trying to exercise their autonomy. And so, as a parent, you got to still deal with that stuff. So, it's been a week. If I could tell you, it's been a week. Okay? So, today, I ain't on my centeredness. So, my conversation might not flow how it normally does. But we going to get through it. I don't have a long list of things to tell y'all about. And I think it's some helpful stuff that y'all can relate to that's fairly simple. So just stick with me if I got to read the card, okay? Because I didn't get to read the card back to myself. I wrote my own notes, but I needed to read my notes back so that I could make it sound fluid. And I didn't do that. So it might be a little choppy, but y'all stick with me, okay? All right, so meditation. What we're talking about is like the ins and outs of meditation, right? So like things that you notice, or not things that you notice, because that's kind of what we talked about last time. These are more like, what do I want to say? Proven things that have kind of been proven throughout scientific experiments and things of that nature, studies, whatever, so that people can know why are you doing meditation. We don't want to just be like, we're doing meditation because it sounds cool. We want to have some science behind it. So like I say, if you're out here in the streets, I want you to be talking about stuff because you know about it, not just because I told you. So some of the things that they have studied that are great with, y'all, I ain't got no words. My interwebs done timed out on my meditation music, and that was helping me be in the zone. Whew, okay. Take a beat. That's what we said. Take a beat. Recognize where you at, right? I'm practicing mindfulness right now while I'm over here with y'all. Take a beat. Recognize where you at, and keep pushing. All right. Okay, I'm giving myself some grace, right? Okay, we ain't got to be perfect. I'm giving myself some grace. Okay. So, things that they have studied about meditation that they find actually change like over the course of practicing regular meditation. Okay, y'all ready for the list? All right, here we go. So it helps to sharpen attention. I know we talked about that on Tuesday when I was telling you guys about different things that I have noticed, and I know we talked about that before with just different general mindfulness techniques. Meditation is a mindfulness technique, and some people can even like to say that like kind of all mindfulness techniques are kind of forms of meditation, vice versa. It depends on where you are on the whole thing. But, being able to focus, obviously, if you're practicing a technique that is assisting you with focusing, right? Because that's generally what we do when we're meditating. We're doing some kind of focus activity. So obviously it's going to help you to strengthen and sharpen your attention. It's going to help you to not have a wandering mind. So that's kind of the same thing when you talk about attention, right? It's going to help you to not have to be like daydreaming when you don't want to. It's okay to daydream if that's what your goal is to do, is just sit and let your mind wander. But it's not good if you're supposed to be studying, reading an article that you need to retain, a memo for work, at the meeting at work when somebody's talking about something important, or even more specific, like when there are people in your life that you care about that are talking to you and they want your attention. So all of those things are important, right? So that your mind ain't wandering off when you're supposed to be focusing. Also problem solving skills. And if you kind of think about it, the two previous things, so being able to maintain your focus and also being able to not have your mind wandering off, right? Those are two sides of the same coin. Probably you can understand how your problem solving skills would then increase, because now your ability to maintain your focus on the problem, and then also your ability to kind of, we talked about when we talked about mindfulness before, your ability to kind of stay present. So that increases as well. So that's also very helpful when you're trying to problem solve, to be aware of what's currently happening and then aware of all the other parts. All right. Okay. All right. We got through that little paragraph. Okay. Let's go on to the next paragraph. All right. So another thing that they have studied is your ability to be resilient when there's stress. So this is mainly psychological stressors, not necessarily physical stressors. And those are a tad different as far as like how your brain processes them and like where it actually processes them. But they found that when you meditate on a regular basis, so we're not just talking about like if you came on and meditated today, tomorrow you're going to notice this difference. It takes a little while. And the majority of the studies I were looking at were, some of them were like people that had meditated for years, but the majority of them was like, they tested the people before they meditated, and then they meditated for 2 weeks, and then they tested them again, right? So it's not like you have to be like a yogi and, or a monk or whatever and do this for your whole life. It is something that you can start noticing the difference of fairly quickly. So if you meditate on a regular basis, what basically happens physiologically, right? So kind of inside of your body starts to be able to come down from the stress response a lot quicker. So we talked about last week about like stress. Was that last week? Week before? when we talked about stress and anxiety and cortisol, and things like that happen when you have that fight or flight response, right? So you get triggered because it's a big dinosaur chasing you, right? Historically, we know that. Okay, I'm gonna use a different example. A bear jumped out, because bears and humans was on the planet at the same time. If a bear jumps out and tries to eat you, right? So your body has a physiological response to that, right? It's grown over the years of us being alive to keep us alive. And so it just happens. And regardless, I mean, if you train yourself, you can train yourself to actually kind of harness those things that naturally happen in your benefit. But still, they're going to happen. I mean, it'd probably be really difficult for you to get those things not to happen. Because, I mean, that's something that's integral to being a human and staying alive, right? So, one of those things that happens is your cortisol levels go up, right? They spike when you get stressed. Because, like I said, in 2021, our stress response ain't necessarily a bear jumping out of the bushes. It's more like, social stressors, right? So, like your relationships, with your intimate partners, with your friends, with your family, with your job, with school, people on social media stressing you out because they trolling, whatever, right? Those things are more what we interact with on a regular basis, right? So our body has kind of morphed what used to cause us stress, like what initially caused our bodies to have that crazy reaction was to save our lives, but you being stressed out on social media is not necessarily going to kill you, but our body still has the same response. So what they found with people that meditate over extended periods of time for regular basis, and they found this even when the people are not meditating. So it's not just a practice that happens like when you sit down for your 10 minutes a day or your 15 minutes a day, however long, and you meditate and it's like, oh, that's lovely that I don't have that stress response then. You shouldn't have that stress response when you're meditating, because nobody's supposed to be stressing you out. I guess you could stress yourself out, and that is totally possible. But realistically speaking, you're probably not going to run into a whole lot of stressors while you to yourself meditating, right? But the effects of this carry on even when you're not meditating, right? And what it found was that it lowers kind of like your body's inflammatory response. And we're not going to get super technical. Y'all know I like to give y'all all the details. We're not going to get super technical in that. But as a result, when those cortisol levels spike after you have encountered the stress, right, and then your body goes into that fight or flight defense, after that, you come down a lot quicker, right? So it's not like the prolonged. And I know when we talked about stress, the whole week we talked about stress, one of the things we talked about was prolonged stress, like chronic stress. And so when you have prolonged periods of stress, when your stress is just drug out and things keep piling on because you ain't dealt with that stress and now you got a new stress and it's all just piling up, making a mountain, those things add up, right? And so then you end up with all those other complications that we talked about can arise from you having that chronic stress, the long-term stress or extended stress, right? And so when you're able to come down a lot quicker because you've been meditating on a regular basis and now your body is able to kind of process through those things a lot quicker, then it's great for you because, like we said, we can't change other people. We can't change the weather. We can only change ourselves, right? And those stressors or stressful events and things that have happened, they're going to continue to happen. They're not going to stop just because you meditate now and so everybody, you got a tattooed on your forehead, I'm a meditator, right? And so you shouldn't be stressing me out. That's not how that works. So, in regards to that, they're going to keep happening. And so it's great that your body can physiologically come down from the stress and the stress response. It can come down a lot quicker because those stressful events are going to continue to keep happening. And so when you come down a lot quicker, then that mitigates the amount of time, right? So then you may not fall into the chronic stress category as often as you used to, and hopefully with time, and we always talk about practice and it becomes a habit and then you become a master. Hopefully with that continued cycle, you will find yourself being less stressed because you are able to manage it a lot better, and then your body managing it better, and then look at you out here shining, okay? Let me make sure I didn't forget anything. Okay, so I did want to speak a little bit more specifically about the stress center, the amygdala. That's just like the little piece of your brain tissue that likes to fight with you. That's where a lot of those chemical reactions are started. When you start to feel stress, it gets triggered. It starts triggering other things. And so it also, when they looked at the studies about stress in particular and about people who meditate, they also saw that people's amygdalas changed. So, like I said, it's not just as simple as not just as simple. It's a little bit more complicated, right? You may think like, oh, I'm meditating, and so I'm sitting and I'm doing deep breathing techniques, and you might just leave it at that, right? And think like, okay, that's what's making things different. But we talked about this before too, and I just want to reiterate it again, that you are using meditation as a exercise for your brain, literally. And so you're strengthening different parts of your brain, and the amygdala's relationship to stressors is one of the parts of your brain that you're strengthening, right? And you're not strengthening it to be more excitable when you get stressed, but we talked about like how you're able to come down a lot quicker. A lot of those things are regulated by different portions of your brain, and so if you exercise them to work in your favor, then they will when you need them. And then another thing I wanted to talk about is the prefrontal cortex. So I don't want to get too crazy down in the hole with y'all, but the prefrontal cortex is like prefrontal, so it's in the front of your brain, and it is part of the brain that has to do with, like, if we just gonna boil it down, we could think about like logic and planning, right? So like if you think about the difference between like a teenager or a young adult, and sometimes we think that they're mature, and then when it comes to like decision making and reasoning skills, we're like, you ain't really got that part yet. And that's part of that, because that's like one of the last pieces of our brain to fully develop. And if you've heard this number, congratulations. If you haven't, you're about to hear it now. That until you're about 25 years old, now I'm gonna blow some of y'all minds a little bit. Till you're about 25 years old, your brain actually isn't fully developed yet. So that's one of the last parts that is developed, is like your planning and your logic and reasoning portion of your brain, right? So to get back to why meditation is so, super awesome, cool, is that it actually helps to strengthen some of those pathways and the connectivity, right? And so I don't want to get too far deep down the rabbit hole, but it helps to strengthen that. So like we talked about exercising different parts of the brain, how we're exercising the amygdala to help us with our stress response and to help us not, be chronically stressed, because we're able to come down from the stressors or even process the stressors different. Strengthening the pathways in your logic and reasoning part of your brain. Well, you know what? If you haven't had the connections in your logic and reasoning part of your brain, then maybe you need me to explain this part. But if you do have those connections, you can understand why strengthening them will continue to help you. So like before, when we were talking about problem solving, this is another thing that helps with problem solving, because if you're able to have, more reasoning and things of that nature, then obviously you're going to be better at problem solving, okay? So we see how it's all a full circle. Like, these things just work in tandem to help you show up in your best, right? Like not anybody else's, but just show up as the best you. And that's all we want, really, is to be able to show up in our fullest self. We don't want to look back. We talked about, like, if you write the story of your life and you look back at the Cliff Notes version and you're like, well, what does it really say? You just really want to be able to show up in your best you. That's it. And so this is just helping you to be able to show up in your best you. Alright, so the next thing that it does is it helps you to improve your relationships. So it's kind of what we talked about before with the corticos levels and things of that nature. Hey, Dre. Things of that nature. It also helps you to be able to, it's stressful. Let's just say this. It can be very stressful when you have those conversations with your loved ones, right? And not because something stressful is automatically going to happen, but because there is a potential for something stressful to happen. I kid y'all not, I got a text message earlier today. It was not about anything crazy, but the person was like, they didn't say we need to talk. Y'all know that's like the dreaded dun 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 sentence. It was like, hey, are you busy? I gotta answer you a question or something like that, right? And I just kind of like the pit of my stomach fell out. Not because I thought anything crazy was about to happen, but just because I knew something crazy could follow that sentence. So that's kind of like one of the things, right? Where you can understand, like, sometimes having relationships with people, or just our generic relationships with people, can garner a little stress, even if you ain't arguing, right? And so being able to have those processing, right, that frontal part of your brain, being able to have a lot more connectivity there is going to help, because that's the processing and logic and reasoning part of your brain. Also, to have that stress response not be firing off as crazy, and if it does fire off, then you are able to come down a lot quicker. It can just help you to have better relationships. It's just kind of a generic thing that happens as a result of other things happening, right? Like we talked about, the whole circle of things. So, nothing super duper complicated about that, but more so in regards to the stress part, where it's like, okay, if you think something stressful is going to happen, and then you get stressed out, and then you maintain the stress, and you try to have a conversation with somebody else, it's not going to go good, because usually your stress is going to turn into their stress, or vice versa, and then everybody's stressed out, and nobody heard nothing the other person said, and then you look up later, and you're like, why was we even arguing, and don't nobody know. Maybe that's just my soap opera. If it's your soap opera, I hope this helps you. So, all right, okay, the next thing it helps to do is to reduce negative emotions. And so there is such a thing called a negative bias. And I think a lot of these things is so crazy, because if you never really sit down and unpack them, you kind of just go through normal life thinking that these are just things that you have to go through. And I'm not saying you don't have to go through it, but some of the things really don't pertain to kind of our lives currently. We have kind of morphed a level of understanding to fit what happens, but they're not necessarily things that happen to us now and we develop now as a species, right? So like I was talking about before, like, there was a lot of natural dangers that happened when we was living outside, right? When we was sleeping outside with the animals, a whole lot of other dangerous things was happening to us than when we living in a house, right? And so driving a car to work, I mean, there are different dangers associated with that, but it's not the same. And so another thing that I think we developed kind of like over the rearing of the species was to have like this negative bias. And it's not because we want to see things negatively. It is just because when there is something negative that happens, it triggers that like fight or flight and that stress response, right? It triggers those things so that we don't continue to do them, right? Because if every time you walk past the bear's cave, the bear jumped out on you, then your body needs to make sure that it remembers, right? Like you need to have a whole response to remember to stop walking past that bear's cave. Because one day you ain't going to run fast enough, or ain't going to get up that tree and get away from the bear. So your body needs to have a response, and you need to teach your offspring and all that stuff, right? So this is literally like pounded into us as a species, right? To remember those negative things so that we can try not to continue to fall into those same traps, because it could have been life or death at some point. May not be now, but we still had the same cycle of response. And so negative bias is kind of that. It's kind of where we have a tendency to focus on the negative stuff. I know that I could come up right now with a time that I have done that, or times that I remember doing that, right? Like as a practice. And so I know that you probably could come up with one too. So it's not to say that is wrong. Like we said, it's not anything that we're necessarily purposefully doing. But now that we know that meditation can help us to kind of like untangle that ball, because I'm sure if you really sat down and thought about it, like you don't want to spend your time thinking and focusing always on the negative stuff. You can be aware of it, but that doesn't mean you need to focus on it, right? And so if meditation can help you, why not? So that's another great thing that they found out through some different research, that meditation can help you to not always be so focused on the negative stuff. So, all right. So another thing it can help you to do is medically. Now, let me get a disclaimer, okay? Let me get a disclaimer real quick. I am not a medical professional. I went to years worth of schooling to be a medical professional, but I didn't get a degree, and I never went and got hired as a job or none of that, right? So I have like, I have probably a different level of medical understanding than just a person that, you know, a lay person that has no like understanding of it. I have more medical understanding than somebody that watches like House or any of those other medical shows, right? Because I kind of like, you hear a lot of terminology there, but you don't really understand necessarily how things work. So I got a pretty good understanding about how a lot of different things work. And when I read those different medical things, it makes a lot of sense to me. But I am not a medical professional, okay? So I'm telling you these are things that I researched. And when I'm telling you research, I didn't just Google it. I made sure that I was going to very reputable sources. So when I'm giving you this list, this is somebody else's list, not my list. Don't get over here trying to sue me, talking about some Deandra told me to do meditation every day, and now I won't have diabetes no more. I didn't say that to you, okay? I'm just letting you know that this is the list of things that they have studied, right? Things other people have studied that they say medically can be helped with the addition of meditation. It does not necessarily mean that those people stopped any medical interventions they were doing or any like medications they were taking, right? That's a medical intervention. They didn't stop any of those things and only do meditation and then like don't have the ailment no more, the disease. That's not what I'm telling you. I'm just telling you that they have done studies to say that these things could potentially be alleviated in some way, shape, or form by practicing regular meditation. Okay, now that I just said that disclaimer, because I ain't got time for none of y'all to sue me. So, now that I said that, I'm going to read y'all this list of things. And it's actually really fairly interesting because some of the things you would be like, I didn't even think about that. I know we talked about blood pressure and we talked about diabetes the other day. And so, this list is going to give you some other things to be like, woo, sis. So, stressful, basically what they're saying is like, it's the whole stress relief. And you working on your body's ability to manage stress, because a lot of these disease processes are worsened by, some of them are even caused by, and not stress like I said, you know, the person in your life is stressing you out, but just physiological stress, right? Okay, stay with me. So, anxiety, right? We talked about that. We talked about stress and anxiety a couple weeks ago. Asthma, cancer, chronic pain, depression, heart disease, okay? Heart disease, honey, right? What? Because what? High blood pressure we talked about. Irritable bowel syndrome, y'all. Okay, so when I got to writing this one down, I'm like, whoo, they said psoriasis. Of course, we talked about sleep apnea too. And then also they talked about like tension headaches. And so tension headaches is a really easy one to think about when you're like, okay, how is this helping, and what does stress got to do with it? Like, what's love got to do with it? What's stress got to do with it? Tension headaches, if you know anything about those, I mean, generally speaking, they're from stress and not necessarily your perceived stress, but sometimes they could even just be from stress. Like I told y'all at one point that when I started meditating and like doing the relaxation techniques and things like that, I started to notice how much stress I carried in my shoulders. And it's not anything I'm physically like meaning to do. It's just kind of, that's where I hold my tension. And so I have tension headaches all the time because if my shoulders are always constantly overworked, a lot of those muscles come up in here, and then these muscles are nice and tender and juicy. So they're a little vulnerable. So sometimes when them shoulder muscles get to acting up, them neck muscles ain't too far behind it, okay? So I have a lot of tension headaches. So I can definitely understand how something like meditation and just sitting for 10 minutes a day and like actively trying to relax my shoulder muscles. I'm talking about me specifically, so I can make sure that y'all understand how some of these things that show up as like, you know, medical issues can be helped by sitting 10 minutes a day and relaxing my shoulder muscles, right? Because I done gave them things a break, and maybe now I'm starting to be more aware of the fact that I'm holding the tension there, and so maybe I'll start to relax them other times throughout the day, and guess what? Less tension headaches, okay? I just ran that one around in a full circle for y'all so that you could see how there are sometimes things that show up medically that are caused by other things, and sometimes the stress makes them worse, or the stress could be a causing factor in them. So, you know, nothing too complicated. I'm not going to explain to y'all how IBS it's helped by meditation. I didn't go down that rabbit hole, and I know I told y'all the other day I was intrigued by how it helped diabetes, and I went and researched that for y'all. I'm not about to research no irritable bowel syndrome for y'all. I love y'all, but I don't love y'all that much. I'm not about to go look it up. Anybody suffering from IBS, I feel for you. A friend of mine, like one of my oldest friends, her niece had it, and well, no, she didn't have IBS. I think she had Crohn's. But either way, they're not the same thing, but they're similar as far as, it's painful. Like, I feel for people that have that and are suffering from that. So if you want to implement that meditation every week, I hope that it helps, because, anything that can help with something like that is worth it. So anyway, okay, I digressed a little bit. I'm back. That's the end of the list of things. There were some other studies and stuff. You can, I always tell you, don't add me, at Google. You can go Google some different stuff. I know I did see quite a few of the researchers saying that there were some studies, because everybody was just really intrigued about mindfulness and meditation and things like that, and how they could prove them to be scientifically relevant. And that's all fine and dandy, but you don't want to skip the scientific process in order to find something scientifically relevant, because that doesn't really make sense. But there were a few studies that said, like, some people was out here just like, showboating and puffing smoke a little bit up people's butts out here about what what different things do, and like saying, that their experiment was relevant and it really wasn't, and so buyer beware, read at your own discretion. These are some of the things I saw that were very much repeated throughout the different relevant sources that I was looking at. So I just wanted to be able to share some of these things with you guys to let you know that meditation ain't always just about you coming to sit with yourself and being still for a second and, being present minded and all those things. That's awesome that those things happen, and we all need to take some time to ourselves, but it's also awesome that you can have all these other things that happen when you're meditating too. So not only do you get to live your best life sitting by yourself and taking some time to not have to focus on nothing but you also can get some of these other added benefits. So I hope that sheds some light on some things for y'all. I hope y'all learned something today. Today's our learning session. We'll be back tomorrow. Since we skipped yesterday, I'm going to do Friday for y'all. And so that'll be fun. I don't know how many of y'all are going to get on here because it's Friday. And I know like 7 o'clock on a Friday is probably a time where y'all going to be trying to be out living y'all best life in these streets. But if you happen to come on, I'll enjoy your presence while you're here. And if not, you can always catch the playback. I'll put the link to the YouTube channel down in the description when I get done. Also, don't forget to hit the share button. So take your finger now, hit the share button. I ain't gonna harass y'all about that today. I'll just tell you the one time. Take your finger, hit the share button. And tell your mama, daddy, brother, sister, cousin, auntie, uncle, and them to come on here. Make sure you find your accountability partner. That's my homework for today, is to think about who could be your accountability partner, who gonna show up with you, and who ain't gonna mind you calling them, and who is actually gonna show up and call you, to make sure that you get on here so that you can practice your self-care and wellness every week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Excuse me, at 7 o'clock. My burp's messing in my PSA. At 7 o'clock, live on the TRIBEvibe meditation series with your host, Deandra, with Black Amethyst Naturals. Y'all like that, my little commercial in the middle of the thing? Anyway, I'm going to have to record that. I'm going to have to play it back and put it on there. This will be my commercial, Anyway, okay. Yeah, I know every once in a while I like to get silly. So anyway, that's all of that. And we're about to do our meditation. So we're doing good on time today. So I just want you to get comfortable. I want you to sit somewhere or lay somewhere. So sit down, lay down. Just where your spine and your neck can be straight. Anything else can be bent where you want it to be. Try to limit some of your distractions. If you came today, then you did all that you need to do. You cannot do meditation wrong. Just being here is right, okay? So you don't need to be feeling like if this is your first time or if you've been doing it for a while, you're still feeling a little anxious about it. It's okay. Just work through it. You're not doing anything wrong. So remember, practice some grace and celebrate yourself. You came and showed up, and that's a reason to celebrate yourself, okay? So, all right, my loves, we're going to do Netflix, Headspace, Guide to Meditation. This is, I don't know what episode, but y'all know I love Andy. Andy's former Buddhist monk. And he be on here spitting in bars. It didn't make no sense. I know. When I said it, I had already said it. And then I was like, that don't even make no sense. Anyway, but I love Andy, and we're going to listen to him walk us through some guided meditation today. If you haven't had a chance, go on there and look at Netflix series. I love it. They give y'all all kind of good little tidbits of information like I try to do before the meditation. So anyway, my loves, are you ready? Everybody comfortable? I don't have my water today and it's killing me. So all right, here we go.
You ready? Let's give it a go. We're going to start with the eyes open and a nice soft focus, just aware of the space around you. And with that soft focus with the eyes, we're going to take a couple of big, deep breaths. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you breathe in, notice how the lungs fill with air, the body expands. As you exhale, just noticing how the body softens as you breathe out. Just one more time, breathing in through the nose. And this time, as you breathe out through the mouth, if you'd like to, just gently closing the eyes. And just take a moment before you do anything else, just to appreciate and enjoy that feeling of having stopped, of having nothing to do, nowhere to go. Notice the feeling of weight, the weight of the body pressing down against the seat or the floor beneath you. And take a moment as well just to notice your surroundings without looking around, just noticing the different sounds, not trying to shut them out, perhaps noticing any resistance towards them, just getting comfortable in that space. And use this opportunity as well, just to notice how the body feels. Very often, we don't really take time to notice how the body feels. So is there a feeling of heaviness or lightness in the body? A sense of restlessness or stillness in the body? And as you bring your attention into the body, just starting to become more aware of that feeling, that movement of breath in the body. So you don't have to breathe in any special way. Just allow the body to do its own thing. Some people feel the movement of breath in their chest, their shoulders. For some it's in the diaphragm, and for some it's in the stomach. If you can't feel anything, any movement, just gently place your hand on your stomach so you can feel that rising and falling sensation. So just settling the mind. Again, thoughts are going to arise, the mind's going to wander. Just notice when the mind's wandered off. And just gently come back to the breath. To begin with, we're just noticing the breath in a very general way. Perhaps starting to notice whether the breaths are long or short, deep or shallow. Again, we might find ourselves thinking either about the exercise or other things, just realizing when that's happened, letting those thoughts go and coming back to the breath again. And just to make it a little easier to focus on the breath, we're going to begin to count the breaths as they pass. So as you feel the rising sensation, counting 1, falling sensation 2, just silently in the mind, then 3, then 4, just up to a count of 10. When you get to 10, you're going to stop and start again at 1. So remember, no effort required. The body knows how to breathe. Not getting involved in any thinking, just allowing the thoughts to come and go. And in those moments when you realize the mind's wandered off, just gently bringing the attention back to the breath again. So we'll just stay with that feeling, a rising and falling sensation, just for a few moments longer. And then just for a moment now, I'd like you to let go of any focus, even of the breath now. And for a few seconds, just allow your mind to do whatever it wants to do. So if it's been wanting to think, you can let it think now. Just allow the mind to do whatever it wants to do. And now just gently bringing the attention back to the body. Just coming back now to that feeling of weight, that feeling of contact against the seat or the floor beneath you. Perhaps noticing the sounds around you again. And whenever you feel ready, you can just gently open your eyes again. But before you move, just take a moment to notice how you feel in your body and in your mind. The more often we do this after meditation, the more we're reminded of how much we need to pause in our life, to take this time out for ourselves.
All right, loves, how you feel? Andy just told you to think about how you feel. I'm going to ask you again, how you feel? So, I always enjoy you guys. Thank you for coming. I hope that meditation really does help you guys. Like, I really hope that you're able to stick with it, you know, do something for yourself. And this is definitely something for yourself. Like, taking time out to just be with you and work on some things. And like, even what we talked about today, like just hearing how many different things, practicing something like meditation or the mindfulness techniques and like de-stressors and things like that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, like just seeing how different and like how many different aspects of your life it can actually change. You know, it's empowering to me to be able to hear like all of those different things that I can affect positively in myself, you know? So I hope that you guys are able to be empowered by the information and the different techniques and things that we've been sharing on here. So anyway, that was just something I had a thought of, so I felt like I shared. So anyway, my loves, I will see you all tomorrow if you make it. If not, catch us on the playback. So have a good rest of your evening. Don't forget to find your accountability partner. That is our homework for today. So I love you all. Have a good rest of your evening. And I'll see you back here tomorrow on Friday at 7 o'clock sharp Eastern. Live. We're going to be here. Bring all your people. Okay. Bye for real.